Math science video. Yay. Maybe. Yeah, another response to Pyro though. Ooh. So he's made another video. I'll put it on the debate page, but it's the audio's so poor I won't do it as an embed. Just do it as an icon. He basically, paraphrasing, is still going to sit there and say that there's some sort of sense. I don't know. We're not going to call it this. We're not going to call it awareness or consciousness explicitly, but we're going to imply that that's what it is. And it's a chemical-based sense. So when a chemical hits the little thing and there's a little reaction to the chemistry, you know, the acid burns the finger and the tissues react and the sense the chemicals, you know, whatever, that's consciousness. That's the theory of it anyway. That it could be that way is his argument. There's nothing preventing it. Yeah, but there's nothing demonstrating it either. There's no evidence of it. So, I mean, you can't take... look, reflexes make this whole thing complicated because we know we have reflexes. We know we can decapitate ourselves and our fingers will still move and things will happen. Our body will go into a stress reaction. But there's no Wi-Fi. I mean, there's no connection between the brain and the body except through that spinal cord. When you cut that, there's no signal. Consciousness is not going to be bothered either way because there's not going to be anything feeding the brain, a blood pressure, and once there's no blood pressure, there's no consciousness. And even if it were to be maintained, even if you could have your head cut off, remain conscious and you know, be aware of the fact that you've been decapitated. Yeah, what your body would be doing would be completely, you just laugh at it like, yeah, well, I don't know why you're so upset. I'm pretty comfortable. Yeah, so the connection is lost. And so reflexes fool us. So we'll see a microbe will bang into something and its body will contract and it will react. That reaction is interesting. I mean, as a reaction, I mean, yeah, the little hairs on its thing are hit, and then it's like a Venus flytrap. You know, there's a little trigger mechanism. The little dominoes flip chemically, and the trap door is sprung. But to imply that there's any reason for consciousness to exist in there, there's no reason for it to exist. There's no need for it to exist. It will add no extra functionality to the machine for it to be aware that it's doing any of that crap. So what would be the point of it evolutionarily? It would have no point. Consciousness only has a point. It only has a use. When you can have an interaction between this aware thing and a feeling. That's really what it takes. It takes the sensation thing. You got to have the sense of it, and then you have to have something that can think about the sensations being felt and go through a memory, a storage space, figure out different possibilities, and then come up with an answer based on the feeling. But if it was all going to be just a reaction without any consciousness involved, there would be no need for the consciousness. So you're just discounting. We would be completely a programmed mechanism if it wasn't for the need to create the feeling, to create the desire, the motivator, and to create this this instrument of feedback, where you become so much more interactive with the environment, where every experience is now a process of learning and acquiring a unique ability to react to the environment now because of this consciousness. And that's why it exists. It exists because it gives us the ability to interact with our environment in a unique way based on our experience. And it wouldn't exist if there wasn't use to that in the first place, which is obvious, I think. And we can see that those are the organisms that have it. It's just silly to keep talking as if there's reason, logical reason, to take what again, it is anthropomorphizing. It is very human for you to sit there and project your feelings into these inanimate objects. I mean, humans do that, but that's a human syndrome. That's not a logical syndrome. It's not sensible. It's not The evidence doesn't demand it. The evidence doesn't indicate it. There's no cause or reason, and there's all kinds of reasons why we know that's not how it works, and that's not how evolution works. You even talked as if all this could happen without any kind of electricity involved, all chemical, and I think that is nonsense. I think it's clear that you need a certain minimum level of complexity to create what is the illusion of a sensation, the illusion of consciousness, of awareness. And it's probably just an illusion. It's probably just something our brain is manufacturing entirely as just a perceptual sense. But, like Einstein said about time, it's one hell of an illusion. It's a powerful illusion, but you need hardware to create it. You can't create it by just mixing some chemistry and having the chemistry be reactive. That's not going to do it. That's not enough. You can't do it by having a flagellum or some other little mechanism. Little structures, little mechanical parts aren't going to be enough to create something like this. And we can sort of see it in the fact that it is dependent on these parts. But we can pick off an awful lot of our brain. You can lose a hunk of it. I've done it. Yeah, I've lost a hunk of it. And you're like, okay, yeah, certain things aren't working. I'll relearn that. But yeah, it's not like I lost who I was. I'm still me. I mean, if I lost more, then I'd probably lose who I am. But the point is, we can pick it to pieces, and we'll find the minimum amount necessary to sustain something called a feeling sense, probably. I mean, the minimum is going to probably be just feelings, just raw sensations of desire, attraction, repulsion. That's probably at the core of this thing. And it's only this more complex structure, this older brain, is just creating more of a theater. It's adding more dimension. Instead of it being black and white and 1940s, it's full color 3D expandovision because of our neurology. Those extra neurons are creating a more intricate story that we're living in. But the fundamental core is the feeling sense, attraction and repulsion. I think that's probably enough. We're just going to keep arguing this around in circles, I guess. And I'm just saying you have absolutely no evidence. All the evidence indicates the opposite, that neurology is incredibly important, electricity is incredibly important, neurons are incredibly important. A high correlation between having neurons and having any kind of substantial conscious capability. There's every evidence that the fact that it's so easy to turn it off. I mean, we turn it off every night. This is it. You need the machinery. It's not just it's just not a manifestation of a few chemicals moving. How could a few chemicals know how to turn it off? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Our brain doesn't stop functioning when we're unconscious. It doesn't cease to be. The chemistry's still happening. So why wouldn't the consciousness still be happening? And the reason is because the consciousness is dependent on the theater. Every little bit of it has to be on. The lamp has to work. The reels have to work. Everything has to work. Has to all be on for there to be a movie. All right. So yeah, we've already been through this. So this idea too, you're walking us through it. You're not walking people through anything that's science-based or fact-based or research-based or evidence-based. You're just, making this shit up. And it's not consistent with what we know. And it's not consistent. Again, you haven't tied it to any kind of evolutionary theory. There's no use to having feelings if you can't react to them in a complex way. And if all you have is knee-jerk reflexes, if that's your only repertoire, is a knee-jerk reflex, there's no point in having the sensation. It adds absolutely nothing to your functionality. Yeah. Alright, that's enough of that. Conference report's been talking about consciousness, but he's not doing the debatey thing, really, and, he's arguing, he's discussing consciousness and different ways of looking at it, and I don't know if I hate the word embodiment, so I can't really do much with that. It's sort of one of those Professor Anton kind of words. You know, what the hell is an embodiment? Ugh. Um, and yeah, I think obviously our consciousness could be more functional. It could be more like the Terminator, and we could have little, you know, temperature sensors and all kinds of other sensors, and it would all be in our field of view kind of thing, and you know, it could all be like that. But I really don't think when we're looking at the world, our brain is just going good, bad, pain. I mean, you know, it's not. I don't think it's that pixelated. I think it is in the sense of how the brain recognizes familiar things. It recognizes patterns. You know, red, shiny chrome. I mean, as I'm looking around, bottle, dirt, filth, crap, shit, scum. You know, I mean, it sees these things. It recognizes these aspects of my environment. What's in my field of view. You know, based on probably a pretty simple stored index. You know, basic index, and anything that fits that index will trigger that thought, and it's either going to be verified by, you know, when we focus, it'll be verified because we'll see more of that, or we'll see less of that, or some connection will be more of that connection, or less of that, and more of this, and so it'll, you know, it sort of falls into something that, you know, if the pattern matches, another pattern matches, and another pattern matches, another pattern matches, our focus will get tighter and tighter as more and more patterns match, and more what we think it is what we thought it was. Um, and you know, the second half of that would be is that our brain also takes a lot of stuff for granted, so it recognizes it, kind of validates it, and then it ignores it because it's really not looking for the mundane, the regular. It's looking for the unusual, and the unusual gets more attention. Logically, that makes sense, right? Um, the threat is usually going to be something unusual, different, something unexpected. So your brain is sort of looking for something that's out of place rather than something in place. Uh, yeah, you know, I guess you could just talk about that kind of crap forever. To me, it's not exactly. I mean, the more important feature is to understand what we are, and that all of this is a contrivance of evolution. And it is just an eccentricity. It's as eccentric as a emperor penguin, you know, laying an egg, you know, miles from the coast, and you know, living a whole bizarre and eccentric lifestyle, or one of those little hunting owls on one Galapagos island that's, you know, hunting like a cat on the ground, or I mean, these are all just eccentric little creatures on this planet, and we're just one of them, and we're doing this little eccentric thing where we're modeling the world as language and conceptualizing it, and that's adding another dimension to our ability to interact. But we really are just feeding on our state of well-being, a state of comfort. We are seeking in the environment comfort. We're seeking in our manipulation of the world comfort, a way of getting rid of the things that are nagging us or opposing us or obstructing us or in our way. I mean, that's all our psychology is built around, is this silly struggle to find peace of mind, peace of physical well-being, unharassment, an unharassed state of being, and that's it. And the whole way it makes this thing look at all interesting is by making us harassed, by making us uncomfortable, as then we will seek the comfort, and it will perpetually and inevitably make you uncomfortable. It will create enough to keep you getting out of bed every day, and to keep playing the game. And that's the nature of the beast, and the nature of it is no better than any other sad, pitiful addiction. And that's the subject I wish was more of the focus of conversation, is what purpose does consciousness serve, and can it be optimized into some more efficient functionality. Yeah. So anyway, hope maybe the last video in this series of this debate, because what again, there's just not much point in arguing something that Pyro's he talks and he's like it's some kind of big deal that he concedes that other people are probably conscious. I mean, he has to say they're probably conscious, like there's some sort of reasonable doubt that they're experiencing consciousness like his own. And whatever. I mean, it's just inane. This, it doesn't exist until I personally taste it bullshit, or I personally lick it, or some other kind of crap. It's just such shit, especially coming out of the mouth of someone who will make up so much stuff about what other things are doing. He's probably got a whole theory about what this piece of scotch tape wants to accomplish. It wants to stick to something. And it probably would like to stick to something better than a pile of cigarette ashes, but that's all it got today. Whatever. Till next time.